In my first life, my wife had a sudden stroke while I was on a business trip. By the time I rushed back, it was too late. She was gone, covered by a white sheet. I was a walking ghost, numb with grief, but before I could even process it, I was surrounded by loan sharks. Only then did I discover she had left me with over $1 million in debt. I sold my house, my car, and worked myself to the bone. 10 years later, while delivering for DoorDash, I saw her, my wife, who was supposed to be dead, walking out of a luxury villa with my best friend. With them was a boy, about 10 years old. I charged at them, demanding an explanation, but the shock sent me into a dead faint. They buried me alive in their backyard. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day of my wife's stroke. "I'm so sorry, man. I couldn't save her." Leo Vance, my best friend, met me at the hospital entrance, his face a mask of sorrow. The familiar scene sent a wave of dizziness over me. We'd dated for 3 years and been married for 5. I loved Chloe with everything I had. The news of her death had hollowed me out, shattering my soul. I never imagined it was all a lie. She had callously faked her own death, saddling me with a mountain of debt, only to run off and start a family with my best friend. To pay off the debts she'd left behind, I sold everything. I worked my 9 to 5, then delivered food all night. I slept in public restrooms and ate the cheapest ramen packets I could find. The only thing that kept me going was the thought of settling her debts, of giving her some final peace. Then, a decade later, I found her by chance in front of a mansion in a gated community. She was holding Leo's arm, looking happier than I'd ever seen her. I ran at them like a madman, screaming for an explanation. She just looked down on me, her voice dripping with contempt. "I've always loved Leo. I only ever wanted to have his children. Thanks for all your hard work, though. The 3 of us have had a wonderful life because of it." The air left my lungs. My vision went black, and I collapsed. Fearing their secret would get out, that perfect couple dragged my unconscious body into their manicured yard and buried me. Lau, my best friend. Anything good that ever happened to me, I shared with him. Not only did he take my wife, he took my life. I had given them my trust, and they gave me a shallow grave. Now, in this new life, the people who betrayed me are going to hell. "Ethan, you okay, man?" Leo, the head of the ER, was waving a hand in front of my face. Seeing that same fake, pitying expression, I couldn't contain the inferno of rage inside me. I put everything I had into it. The crack of my palm against his cheek echoed in the sterile hallway. "Bullshit. How could she be dead?" The slap stunned Leo. He just stood there, frozen. I grabbed the collar of his scrubs. "She's not dead, is she? Tell me she's not dead." My face was contorted with rage, and he started stammering, his composure cracking. "Ethan." Man, let me explain. The idiot. He actually thought I knew the truth and was about to confess everything. I cut him off before he could blow his own cover, sinking to the floor and clutching my head, my body racked with sobs. "She's so young. How could this happen? We were supposed to have a candlelight dinner when I got back." My wails were raw and helpless, drawing sympathetic glances from passersby. Leo visibly relaxed, realizing I was just a grieving husband, unable to accept the sudden tragedy. He knelt, ignoring the stinging red mark on his face. "Ethan, you have to be strong. Don't do this to yourself." That's more like it, I thought. I didn't get a second chance, just to have them confess in the first 5 minutes. The suffering I endured? I was going to return it to them, with interest. I wiped away non-existent tears and grabbed his shoulders, my knuckles white. "My friend, my best friend, take me to see her." Last time, my business trip was on the other side of the country. It took me a full day to get back after they called. By the time I arrived, Chloe was already an urn of ashes. I was such a fool. It never occurred to me that it was all an elaborate scam. This time, I had a premonition and caught an earlier flight, getting to the hospital just 30 minutes after the call. In a private room, I saw her, lying under a white sheet. Her cheeks were flushed. She looked nothing like a corpse. Leo handed me a bottle of water. "Dear Ethan, drink something." The scene was identical. I remembered it instantly. At the crematorium, he'd handed me the same brand of water. I'd taken one small sip, and my head had become foggy, my thoughts sluggish. Paired with the overwhelming grief, I never questioned a thing. It was in that state that I signed the loan repayment agreements. There had to be something in the water. I took the bottle without a word, setting it aside. I moved closer to Chloe, studying her face. My focus on her made Leo shift nervously. I could almost see the sweat beading on his forehead. What a pathetic excuse for a villain. Getting killed by this moron in my past life was the ultimate humiliation. Then I remember the boy I saw. He looked about 10, and now that I thought about it, Chloe's appetite had increased lately. She'd been complaining about morning sickness. They already had a child on the way. I yanked the sheet off. Her body was fuller, her stomach showing a slight but definite curve. That bitch. She always told me she wanted it to be just the two of us, that she wasn't ready for kids. And here she was, pregnant with my best friend's baby. Smack! My hand landed flat on her stomach. Leo shrieked. Ethan, what are you doing? Nothing, I said calmly. Just checking if she's really gone. I've heard stories, you know? People in comas, waking up a day or two later. Leo looked at me like I was insane. Ethan, that's just stuff you see in the movies. It doesn't happen. Before he could finish, I slapped her stomach again, harder this time. Stop it, he practically screamed, jumping forward. Seeing him so frantic was almost funny. He desperately wanted a child. His ex-wife couldn't conceive. The baby in Chloe's belly was everything to him. I put on a confused expression. What are you so worried about? She's gone, Leo. It's not like she can feel a couple of slaps. My voice cracked. But God, if only she could. If only it would wake her up, so I'm not left all alone. I covered my eyes, my shoulders shaking with manufactured grief. Leo was trapped, awkward and agitated, not knowing what to do. I realized something then. Chloe was breathing, however faintly, but my slaps hadn't woken her. To make sure I wouldn't see through the act, they must have put her under anesthesia. And just like that, they handed me the perfect opportunity for revenge. Ethan, you've seen her. We should go now. Let the dead rest in peace. I wave him off dismissively. No, I'm never going to see her again. I want to stay with her a little longer. I sank into a chair and lit a cigarette. Seeing Leo's anxious fidgeting, I offered him one. Here, have one with me. He waved his hands frantically. Ethan, you can't smoke in a hospital. Bullshit. My wife is dead. What's one damn cigarette? Is this hospital that heartless? I took a long drag and blew a thick cloud of smoke right into Chloe's face. Leo looked like he was about to have a stroke himself. Ethan, she hated the smell of smoke. Don't blow it in her face. He was probably worried about the secondhand smoke hurting his precious air. I wanted to tell him not to worry. In my plan, that child would never see the light of day. I frowned. She's dead, Leo. She can't breathe. Is the smoke going to bother her? My voice dropped, low and suspicious. Unless she's not really dead. Is this all some kind of sick joke? My gaze was sharp, pinning him to the spot. Leo started to tremble. He fumbled in his pocket and pulled out the death certificate. Man, you have to accept it. The hospital issued the certificate. It's official. I mused, taking the paper. You're right. If the hospital issued a death certificate for a living person, well, the hospital and the doctor who signed it would be in a world of trouble. Ruined even. His face went pale. My words had shown him he was past the point of no return. Just as he steeled his resolve, my tone shifted, becoming hard as steel. Leo Vance, I believe my wife died due to your hospital's negligence. This is a case of gross medical malpractice. I am suing. As if on cue, the door swung open and several people in suits walked in, looking stern and official. The man in the lead addressed Leo directly. We're from the State Medical Board. We need to see all electronic records and treatment logs pertaining to Chloe Miller. I twisted the knife. And take the body. I want a full autopsy. Do whatever you need to do. Dissect her if you have to. I want the truth. Ethan, how could you? Leo pleaded, his voice cracking. After all our years of friendship, I did everything I could. She's gone, and you want to put her through that? She should be sent to the funeral home, given a proper service, and laid to rest. That's what she deserves. I stared at him with a cold smile, my eyes boring into him until he flinched. My best friend, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm Chloe Miller's legal husband. The final say on her arrangements is mine, isn't it? You're overstepping, Leo. Anyone watching would think you were her husband. He was completely blindsided, stammering, utterly lost. And right on cue, a shrill voice cut through the tension from the hallway. I'd like to see anyone try and touch my daughter. My mother-in-law, with her perpetually sour expression, stormed into the room. Leo let out a breath he'd been holding, relief washing over his face. I'd seen him sneak a text a few minutes earlier. I was counting on it. How could the show go on without her? After all, the medical board officials were just actors I'd hired. I would never let a real me get near Chloe. That would expose their whole lie, and Chloe would miraculously come back to life. I wasn't about to let them off that easy. Smack! Before I could say a word, she slapped me across the face. You heartless bastard. Your own wife is dead, and you want to have her cut into pieces? Are you even human? This woman had never, not once, been kind to me. But in my past life, because I loved Chloe so much, I took it all. I was respectful, obedient, and treated her like my own mother. But now I knew. This whole family had conspired with my best friend to cuckold me, bleed me dry, and treat me like a workhorse. The time for patience was over. You bitch! I slapped her back, so hard she staggered and spun halfway around. Ethan, are you crazy? That's Chloe's mother, Leo yelled. She's not your mother, so shut the hell up. I snapped, then turned my fury back on her. I used to put up with you for Chloe's sake, you old hag. Now that she's gone, you think you can still walk all over me. Besides, I added, my voice rising with indignation, I was out of town. You were supposed to be looking after her. If you'd just gotten her to the hospital sooner, would she be dead? And with that, I put my head in my hands and started to cry again. The old woman, ready to unleash a torrent of abuse, paused. She realized I was unstable and switched tactics. Okay, she said, her tone softening into a syrupy coo. Chloe is gone. We're all upset. It's a difficult time for our family. Family. I glanced at her perfectly applied makeup. She wasn't upset. She was probably already dreaming about the life she'd lead with her share of my money. Ethan, she said, now rubbing my arm. I'm sorry. I wasn't thinking about your feelings. But you have to understand a mother's heart. Chloe is my flesh and blood. How can I bear the thought of a scalpel touching her? Tears started to well in her eyes. She can't feel the pain anymore, I know. But every cut on her body would be a cut on my heart. It hurts so much, baby. Her performance was Oscar-worthy. But I could play that game, too. I grabbed her hand, our tears mingling. Mom, don't say that. I love her so much. Don't you think I'm in pain, too? She patted my shoulder. Good boy. Listen to me. The doctors here did everything they could. Let's get her to the funeral home. Let her find peace. I nodded vigorously, finally agreeing to her request. Peace. I thought. She's never going to know peace again. Soon, the transport van from the funeral home pulled up. Leo's expression finally eased. Once Chloe was at the crematorium, their plan was basically a success. Even if I got suspicious later, there'd be no proof. I knew her father worked at the city crematorium. Swapping out a body would be child's play for him. I refused Leo's offer to come along and instead helped my mother-in-law into the van. Once we were moving, I handed her the bottle of water Leo had given me. Mom, you must be thirsty. Have some water. With the finish line in sight, she had no reason to be suspicious. And after her dramatic performance, her throat was probably raw. You're a good boy, Ethan, she said, taking the bottle and gulping it down. Not 2 minutes later, her eyelids began to droop. You're exhausted, Mom. Just lean back and rest. I'll wake you up when we get there. She mumbled an agreement and slumped against the seat. As her consciousness faded, I leaned in and spoke in a sincere, comforting tone. I'll take care of you from now on. Chloe's gone, but you'll always be my mom. Slurring her words, she kept repeating, good boy. The driver, an older man I'd hired, glanced back and remarked what a good husband and son-in-law I was. He didn't hear my last, crucial sentence, whispered just for her. Mom, back in my hometown, we can still do traditional burials. I can't stand the thought of Chloe in the fire. I'm going to bury her in my family's plot, where she can finally rest in peace. Good, she murmured. You handle it. Let me sleep. I smiled and leaned closer to her ear. Sleep well. There's a surprise waiting for you when you wake up. The driver was part of my plan. Did they really think I'd be stupid enough to take Chloe to be cremated? The moment they got in this van, Chloe's death sentence was signed. She was mine to do with as I pleased. Just then, I saw Chloe's finger twitch. The anesthesia was wearing off. Of course, Leo wouldn't have given her a heavy dose, not with her being pregnant. I leaned over my wife's face, my lips close to her ear, and blew softly. Exciting, isn't it? Bet you didn't see this coming. I felt her eyelashes flutter. She was fine to wake up. Just so you know, I whispered, I know everything. The fake stroke, the debt, all of it. My fingertip traced a line on her rounded belly. And I know about this. Leo's, isn't it? But you told me you didn't want kids. I remember that very clearly. So, I'm going to honor your wishes. He's not going to be born, but I'm not a monster. I wouldn't want your son to be lonely. He's an innocent in all this, after all. It's your fault he has to pay the price. So you're going to go with him. You failed as a wife, Chloe, but you have one last chance to be a good mother. Don't you agree? She could hear me. I felt her body trembling, but she couldn't move, couldn't scream. It's a terrible feeling, isn't it? Being trapped in your own body. I know it well. When they sealed me behind that wall, I felt that same utter despair. It's just your turn now, my love. I continued my gentle monologue. The death I've chosen for you is much kinder than fire. You'll be happy to know. It won't hurt at all. It will be very dark, though. You'll lie in a coffin, just like this, unable to move. Your oxygen will slowly run out. That feeling of not being able to breathe. I want you to experience it fully. And so I wish you and your child a sincere farewell. May you both rot away in the endless dark and silence, until you are nothing but food for worms. A single tear slid from the corner of her eye. The crocodile tears of a predator. But they still look so pitiful. Oh, honey, don't be like that. If you cry, you might make me go soft. I picked up the half-finished bottle of drugged water and poured the rest of it into her mouth. There, that's better. You just sleep a little longer. When you wake up, you can sleep forever. With that done, I leaned back and closed my eyes. My family's old house was in a rural town just outside the city. It wasn't too far, maybe a 3 or 4 hour drive. After a while, my phone started ringing. The caller ID showed Chloe's father. By now, they should have arrived at the crematorium. When we didn't show, he was panicking. I let it ring. After all, I was a grieving husband taking my wife to her final resting place. It was perfectly reasonable that I'd be too exhausted and distraught to notice my phone. He called 3 times, then started calling my mother-in-law. She, of course, was drooling in her drug sleep. Next, Leo's name lit up the screen again and again. I could picture their frantic panic. It was delicious. Finally, when we were about 30 minutes from my family's property, I answered. Ethan, where are you? Why haven't you been answering your phone? Her father demanded. I'm sorry, Dad. I was so tired. I must have fallen asleep. We're almost at my old family home. What are you doing taking my daughter there? You were supposed to come to the crematorium. Oh, I changed my mind. You know, Chloe was always afraid of pain. I couldn't bear the thought of fire. This way, I can bury her next to my ancestors. She'll be at peace. You bastard. Who gave you the right to make that decision? I don't approve. But Mom already approved, Dad. I thought you'd both support it. Bullshit. Put your mother on the phone. Before I could answer, Leo's voice cut in. Ethan, her mom would never agree to that. Come back right now. I stretched lazily. Sorry, guys. Mom's completely exhausted. She's sound asleep. I can't wake her. Ethan, what did you do to her? Don't do anything illegal. Leo warned. Illegal? Leo, you sound crazy. What's illegal about it? All I did was give her a drink of the same water you gave me. Did you poison it or something? Silence on the other end. Her father spoke again, his voice tight with panic. You wait right there. We're coming now. And I'm telling you again, I do not consent. Do not bury her. Okay, Dad. But you'd better hurry. If you drive fast, you might just make it for the service. I hung up. Sir, can you step on it? I said to the driver. My in-laws are having a disagreement. My father-in-law wants a cremation, but my mother-in-law is already heartbroken. I don't want them to fight. The driver flicked his cigarette, but out the window. You got it. Hold on tight. When we arrived at the old house, the town council members and the people from the local funeral home were already waiting. The mournful sound of a lone trumpet began to play as the procession made its way into the woods. I spared no expense for my wife, ordering a high-quality, airtight coffin. Half an hour later, the service was over. The heavy casket containing Chloe was lowered deep into the earth. The last rays of the evening sun filtered through the leaves, creating a peaceful atmosphere. It was a beautiful spot, a fine place to spend eternity. It's a shame, my dear Chloe, that you won't be resting here for very long. I have no intention of letting you pollute my family's land. Everything went smoothly, except for one small detail. A few people thought they heard a faint thumping sound, but it was so quiet, and they couldn't tell where it was coming from. As dusk settled, the pallbearers, the council members, the funeral staff, and the curious onlookers all began to disperse. Only I remained. They assumed I was overcome with grief, wanting a final moment alone with my wife. No one disturbed me. I pressed my ear to the freshly turned soil. Faintly, I could hear a muffled, desperate screaming. Knowing she was finally awake was all the satisfaction I needed. Back at the house, my mother-in-law was just starting to stir on the sofa. She rubbed her temples. "Ethan, where are we? How long was I asleep?" I gave her a placid smile. "You were sleeping so soundly, Mom. I didn't have a heart to wake you. You missed it." She shook her head, still groggy. "Miss what? What were we doing?" "You've forgotten already. I told you there'd be a surprise when you woke up." "A surprise?" "That's right. Chloe's funeral is all taken care of. She's buried good and deep. Finally at peace." "Oh, okay, that's goo." Her eyes snapped wide open. "You said what?" "I said Chloe, your daughter, is buried. 6 feet under. Resting peacefully." The fog finally cleared from her mind. "You goddamn monster. You bury my daughter? Who told you that you could do that? Where is she?" I shoved her away as she lunged at me. "You're a real comedian, Mom. You're the one who agreed to the burial. The driver can testify to that." "You're insane. Tell me where you buried her. You'll kill her." A wicked grin spread across my face. She did this to herself. With that, I grabbed 2 bottles of whiskey from the kitchen and sprinted up the stairs, all the way to the 3rd-floor attic that led to the roof. She chased after me, but she was no match for my speed. I slipped out onto the roof, locked the door behind me, and sat on the edge, twisting the cap off a bottle. She pounded on the door, her screams muffled. Tell me where my daughter is. She's going to die in there." I heard her, but pretended I didn't, and took a long swig of whiskey. Soon, neighbors gathered below, drawn by the commotion. Seeing me on the edge of the roof, face streaked with tears, bottle in hand, they assumed the obvious. Several of them pulled out their phones to call 911. They had no idea how much I was enjoying this performance. In my last life, I toiled day and night and never knew a moment's peace. I endured a life of hardship only to die without justice. My beloved wife and my best friend betrayed me in the worst way imaginable. And even then, they wouldn't let me live. So be it. This time, I would show no mercy. With Chloe suffocating in the cold earth, half my revenge was complete. Now, I just had to wait for Leo to walk into the trap. Sure enough, not 10 minutes later, a car screeched to a halt below. Leo and my father-in-law scrambled out. My mother-in-law collapsed into her husband's arms, sobbing. "He buried her. That monster buried our daughter." Leo heard this, and his legs nearly gave out. I looked down on him from my perch and took another celebratory drink. "You animal," my father-in-law screamed. "Tell me where she is. We have to dig her up. She might still be alive." "Dad, you have to accept it." I slurred, playing the part of a devastated, drunk husband. "Chloe's gone. Just let her rest in peace." Leo dropped to his knees on the pavement. "Ethan, brother, I'll tell you the truth. She wasn't dead. It was a trick to get away from the death. You buried her alive. Please, I'm begging you. Tell us where she is before it's too late." I scoffed and ignored him, taking another drink. Seeing him like this, so broken and desperate, was pure bliss. My father-in-law was losing his mind. "You son of a bitch, get down from there. If my daughter dies, you're a murderer." "I know you're just trying to trick me," I mumbled, pretending to be paranoid. "You're trying to get me off the roof. I'm not falling for it." They were frantic, pleading, and screaming. Finally, the flashing lights of police cars illuminated the scene. They ran to the officers like they were saviors, begging them to help. I checked my watch. Enough time had passed. She was gone. I let them lead me away. Chloe Miller was unearthed a full hour after her burial. I'll admit, as they pried open the coffin lid, I felt a flicker of anxiety. I was terrified she might have survived. But then I saw her. Her eyes were bulging, her mouth locked in a silent scream. I breathed a sigh of relief. A collective gasp went through the crowd of onlookers. My God, she suffocated. So that's what that knocking sound was. Chilling. Her death had been brutal. All 10 of her fingernails were torn and bloody from clawing at the wood. My mother-in-law let out an animalistic wail and threw herself onto the coffin. Not to be outdone, I rushed forward, my face a perfect mask of shock and horror. How can this be? I muttered over and over. How? The police, realizing the gravity of the situation, moved to secure all of us. Leo stared blankly at Chloe's body, while my father-in-law clutched his chest, gasping for air before collapsing to the ground. Looks like the stroke Chloe was supposed to have found a new victim. The stage was all mine now. My love, my poor, sweet wife. I howled. To die twice in one day. The cruelty of it. Tears streaming down my face, I lunged toward Leo, only to be restrained by an officer. Leo Vance. I screamed, straining against his grip. You told me she was dead. You gave me a death certificate. What is this? You're the murderer. Leo was stunned into silence. Bullshit. You buried her. You're the killer. Officers, arrest him. I'm innocent. But the police weren't listening to his frantic accusations. This was a homicide, a particularly gruesome one. Everyone involved was taken into custody. The interrogation lasted all night. I was prepared. I stuck to my story. I was a grieving husband who had no knowledge of his wife's scheme. My actions were those of a man who believed his wife was dead. The others, however, folded quickly. My mother-in-law and Leo confessed to the entire fake death and insurance fraud scheme. They were found guilty of conspiracy, fraud, and involuntary manslaughter. For faking a death certificate and his role in the scheme that led directly to Chloe's death, Leo was sentenced to 15 years. By the time he gets out, who knows if he'll still be able to have kids? And even if he can, what woman would want him? His family line was ending with him. My mother-in-law got 10 years. In my past life, I never saw her much. She was always off on some cruise or vacation, enjoying my money. Now, instead of a carefree retirement, she'd be spending her golden years at a sewing machine. I imagine she's not too happy about that. My father-in-law was left completely incapacitated by the stroke, living out his days in a state-run nursing home. Their life savings were wiped out by legal fees and medical bills. As for me, the assets Chloe had tried to steal were recovered and used to pay off the debt, essentially canceling it out. I'm good at my job, and it wasn't long before I was living a comfortable life again. The one thing I never expected was what happened between me and Leo's ex-wife, Sarah. I swear it wasn't about revenge. At first, I just felt responsible. Her husband went to prison because of my family's drama. I started checking in on her. We were both survivors, two people who had given our love to the wrong person. We understood each other's pain, and the more I got to know her, the more I realized that besides not being able to have children, she was perfect. I fell for her hard, and she, in turn, was drawn to my kindness and sense of responsibility. 6 months later, we were married, and in the biggest twist of all, she got pregnant soon after. She and Leo had tried everything for years, with no success and no explanation from doctors. I think some things are just meant to be. Some people just aren't meant to have a life together. Today, I visited Leo one last time. He was thinner, harder. The prison had disciplined him. He looked at me with dead eyes. You came to gloat? You must be enjoying this, seeing me like this. I stare back at him. You still don't get it, do you? You betrayed me. You destroyed my life. You're the one who owes me an apology. Bullshit, Ethan, don't play innocent, he spat. I've had a lot of time to think. You knew about our plan from the beginning. You set us up. I didn't admit it, but I didn't deny it either. I just smiled. His face darkened. I could never beat you at these mind games, not even when we were kids. But don't get too cocky. I didn't lose completely. After all, he sneered, I slept with your wife. He watched me, waiting for a reaction, for some sign of pain. I just sighed. That's the saddest part, Leo, that you still see this as a game of winning and losing. I should thank you. You show me who Chloe really was. She was never the one for me. And there's something else I need to thank you for. He looked at me, confused. I smiled, a genuine, happy smile. Thank you for leaving behind such a wonderful woman. Sarah, she's the one I was meant to be with for the rest of my life. She's my wife now, my soulmate. He froze. My amazing, beautiful wife, I continued, savoring every word, is pregnant. Looks like it's going to be a big, healthy boy. This is the last time I'll ever see you, Leo. I just wanted to share the good news. I'll kill you he roared, lunging forward, the chains on his restraints rattling violently. The guards immediately shouted at him. I just shook my head, my heart light. You're pathetic. I turned and walked away, humming a cheerful tune, leaving him to his rage and the sound of his own desperate screams. Everyone pays for their choices. I made the wrong choice once, and it led to a miserable end. This time, happiness was waiting for me.